summer 1923. But Thomas could not help himself. He couldn't help following Branson up the stairs when he had invited the school teacher, Miss Bunting, up to the gallery. He couldn't help arguing with Branson, pointing out that he could not be compelled to think in a certain way. How much would Thomas have given to have smashed that man in the face for what he had done to Milo? The point is, the only reason we went upstairs was so that she could enjoy the view into the hall. I wouldn't want you to think any different. However you wish to command me, I am your servant, Mr. Branson, but I was not aware I was under orders as to what I might think. And Thomas Barrow could not help himself when he had arrived in London, and had spoken to his lordship. Before you go in, my lord. What is it? I wasn't sure whether to tell you, but I was put in charge of Downton when you left. Is something wrong? Not in that way, and you may think it's none of my business, but when the family's honour is concerned, my lord, I feel it is my business. Go on. The other night I was patrolling the galleries, just making sure everything was shipshape before I turned in, when I ran into Mr. Branson with a lady upstairs. Just as I said, my lord, on the bedroom gallery. What time was this? Oh, quite late. I can't say which room they'd been in, or if they'd been in a room at all, except, I don't know why else they'd be up there. Anyway, they went downstairs and he drove her back to the village. Who was this lady? He said her name was Miss Bunting, my lord, Miss Sarah Bunting. Of course, Mr. Branson is still a young man, and he can't be expected to stay single for the rest of his life, but even so, thank you, Barrow. Yes, my lord. It had hit home, a stab here and there. It was all Thomas could do. 88,888,888. So now they were in London, and he was below stairs. Thomas noticed something about the Royal Society and asked Mr. Carson about it. No, Carson told Barrow firmly. You have to be a member to go there. It is simply a choice between the British Museum and the Crystal Palace. Thomas sighed, and went off to black the boots. What do you want to know them about the Royal Society for? About this girl you married? Miss Baxter asked him, holding her ladyship's shoes. You know nothing, Thomas told her, angrily, and slammed down the shoes on the bench in the middle of the table. Henry told me she was delightful, Miss Baxter called back through the door as it closed, with force. It opened again with force and Thomas kicked it shut. Look! He maneuvered Miss Baxter towards the wall, slammed his hand against it, narrowly missing her face. You know nothing about her, and nor will you. He craned further towards Miss Baxter, but then retreated. When the door opened, it was Mr. Milsley, and he was glaring at Thomas, in a way only Joseph Milsley could. It was as if a dead halibut was trying to outstare you. Are you talking about Miss Ashby? He asked Thomas. Miss Ashby? Repeated Miss Baxter. Oh yes, Mr. Milsley replied, when Thomas hadn't replied. It's the worst kept secret in the world, wouldn't you say, Mr. Barrow, that you married a girl who was barely out of childhood? His indignity made for a better argument. Leave Milo out of this, Mr. Milsley, Thomas said, stepping towards the door, clearly shaken. Oh, I don't know. I heard what you said about having her teach Daisy. And this time, Thomas smiled. Perhaps, when she's back from Copenhagen. She's going the next year, to meet with a Professor Boer on behalf of Professor Rutherford. I am right proud of her, Thomas added, and despite the name dropping, actually felt it. Is she by any chance go to Geneva? Mr. Milsley asked him, proving himself to be the better supplier of gossip than Miss Baxter. Or was it Zurich? I can't rightly remember. Lady Edith and Lady Painswick went there, for, well, 8 months, looking for her beau, Michael Gregson. Thomas exchanged a look with Miss Baxter. Thank you, Mr. Milsley, said Thomas, and Milsley stepped back, looking at him in alarm. Thanks? What for? But Miss Baxter merely laughed, a gentle, tinkling laugh as Thomas Barrow left the boot room in triumph. 88,888,888. There is a phone call for you, Mr. Barrow. That was how their afternoon started. Ethan Slade, Mr. Levinson's man, had organized with Daisy for a picnic to be made, and during the preparations the telephone bell rang and he was called through. It was a relief to hear his wife's voice, although she sounded concerned. But Thomas knew that he would get time off to see her, for Milo had told them she was in London. Milo always qualified for some time off, mainly from the displaced guilt Lady Mary felt for treating her so harshly before. Milo had taken her word literally and climbed at night during a thunderstorm and had fallen badly. "I need to see you to talk to you about something," Milo told him on the telephone. "I have come down to London but I don't know where to meet you." Silence, as Thomas considered the implications. Had she been attacked again? She didn't sound upset. Did she want to ask his permission for something? Milo, Thomas. More silence. But Thomas now guessed what it was about. He had always known it would come. Milo, start again. "What are you trying to ask me?" Thomas gazed across the titles of the books on this butler's shelf, all neat and tidy. It wasn't working, however, and Thomas felt his heart beating faster. "I have asked Professor Rutherford if I can see you in London. He said if you meet me off the train then yes, but I just come back on Sunday." "So, can you?" "You're already here?" And Milo agreed, so Thomas needed to meet her at Street Pancras while she waited. "Miss Ashby is going to be in London," he told Carson. "She wouldn't ask me if it wasn't important," he added, and Carson agreed in his usual, "It's very inconvenient but if you must manner." "I've been asked by the professor about going in his place, to Copenhagen, to meet Professor Boer," Milo told Thomas as they walked towards the park. "I would so love to meet him," he taught Ernest, "you know." "No," Thomas told her. "I didn't." "Oh, I am sure you do," Milo told him, a smile of amusement on her face. "I remember him telling you one night that he slipped and broke all of the laboratory equipment that the professor had made. And he had came back, to defend Rutherford about his quantized theory of electrons. He once told Rutherford that it was funny that he was from Zealand when the professor was from New Zealand." Thomas stopped walking for a moment, and contemplated Milo's words. He did remember something about that, and he saw Milo laugh a few times. Clearly it was her sort of humor. "Wasn't there a professor who was rude to him?" "Thompson. I work under him now." "I'm afraid that Professor Boer didn't know all the English words to explain something." "No, he was rude to the king," Thomas said, remembering another story. "You wouldn't be rude to the king, would you?" They paused at a crossing, and Thomas held a hand open towards Milo, inviting her to cross, and they walked together to Hyde Park. "No," Milo replied. He shouldn't have corrected the king, though he was wrong. It was his brother who had played football in the 1908 games. Milo remembered the pictures Thomas had once shown her, of the relay race. Harold Boer would have been amongst those pictures. But he was wrong, though. "And you would say something," Thomas thought. "To someone, at least, who is going with you." "Not that Mr. Oppenheimer, Otto Friss, and a new man that Professor Rutherford gets along with, Dirac. Both have many questions. I'm there to sit in place of the professor. Although, and Milo stopped, taking up Thomas's hands in her own. Her look had fallen. "He's not here, thank goodness," the professor said, highly doubtful that he would be attending the Cavendish. "But his father has sent money to the university." "Professor Rutherford doesn't like that." Blackett told me the reason he went to McGill, Canada, was because hostile to colonial chances of fellowship tight. He'd never have met Soddy, never have researched thorium, noticed about half-lives of elements, different atoms break apart at set times, different to one another, she added, and the dimness seemed to go from her now, and Milo began walking again. Thomas walked too, used to her passing moods, and he listened without interrupting. "I do marvel at the professor, and there's things he still has to do. Chadwick though, the mass difference. Rutherford thinks either there is another particle at the center or that a proton changes its characteristic somehow. And Cockcroft thinks it can be induced." "Is that what you wanted of me?" Thomas asked her, unable to stop himself. "You wanted to make sure I was happy you were going, are you?" Milo asked. "It wasn't that, really, but since you have brought it up," Thomas smiled. Reflected glory. "Indeed. I am very pleased," he told her. But then Milo stopped walking, and this time the thing she had come here for was about to be shared. Thomas braced himself. "Patrick, that is, Blackett, spoke to me. I got upset. I didn't know why I did. Really? He said to see you. Go on. It feels like it happened to another person, that night, when I fell, she told Thomas. Not to me at all, me and him. Who? And Thomas's ears both rejoiced and cursed the name. Tom Branson, Milo agreed, and, though they were in the middle of a London thoroughfare, Thomas put his arms she sank into them. I am not angry with him, Milo reassured Thomas's coat sleeve. I was, but not anymore, just sad for him, that he felt he had to do that, to gain money. You may not be, Thomas thought to himself, grimly, but I am. Then Milo felt in pockets, and withdrew a box. Happy early birthday, she told him. Thomas, with a magpie's eye for shiny things, smiled broadly and opened the box. Silver cufflinks. No, platinum, Milo corrected him. Beautiful, he murmured, looking at the Art Deco style inlaid with diamonds. They are second-hand, I hope you don't mind. Dr. Thompson had a mind to sell them. He bought them on Tripta Street, Petersburg, to meet Russian physicists in the 1890s, so he was saying. She watched Thomas examine the beautiful pieces. Mind? Thomas asked her. I think they are the most beautiful things I have seen in a long time. He looked to Milo, and kissed her on the head. But then her face clouded over. Thomas, Milo worried. Could it be true? Do I have to accept Mr. Branson as my guardian, as my husband of some sort? After ... what he did to me? Thomas stopped in the process of reboxing the cufflinks and stared at her. No, he told her. Absolutely not. And to be clear, Prue has an answer. When you are ready to come up. It may be after the conference, Milo told him, and we may go into Germany. Several scientists from the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute have sent an invitation in advance for us to visit. How much I would like to meet Meitner. Elise writes to me often, when she can, Milo added. Geiger will be there. Not Haber, thank goodness. Boer and Rutherford both share the same opinion on that man. Milo had once told Thomas that Fritz Haybet had been the enthusiastic manufacturer of the trench gases. Then there should be no doubt in your mind, Thomas told her. How much kudos would he hold then? His wife in Copenhagen with the famous Boer in contact with other physicists at their university. No nationalities need to be mentioned. Write to me, Thomas, Milo asked. Here is the address. But this time it was Thomas's face that fell. You must hate me after all I did, he told her, darkly. Milo was shocked. Hate him? After everything he had done for her? Why would I? Milo told him. You are as close to me as ever you were. You're my Thomas, she told him, and the biggest holder of my heart. I want for nothing else. And soon you will come of age, he told her. And if Mr. Branson thinks he has any claim, even after Prue's words, he wouldn't when Milo turned 21. And you will stop being my friend? Milo asked him, shocked. Of course not. I am so proud of you, me Lucina, he told her, and Milo and Thomas walked hand in hand through Hyde Park, and were so engrossed in Thomas's stories that they didn't see, sitting and enjoying the picnic, Harold Levinson and the party which had gone out from Downton. Will I know the Albert Memorial when I see it? Ethan Slade had asked, and Mrs. Hughes had rolled her eyes and, in her understated manner, said, yes, you most certainly will. But it was Mrs. Crawley who saw Thomas and Milo and called them to join the party.